All they know is war. All they thirst for is the blood of others. They span the galaxy in an endless crusade, which is not this guy. No, this time we're painting Black Templars. Welcome back to my atelier, and let's get painting. After priming the models black, I got to work dry brushing gunmetal silver over the armor and weapons. I wanted to try and have a more grimdark look, so I tried to avoid the deeper shadows when dry brushing. Then I took a shining silver to the most exposed parts of the armor in the hopes that the layering would shine through the black contrast paint. Once the dry brushing was completed, I took Chaos Black contrast paint and thinned it down with contrast medium in a 1-to-1 mix. The medium really helps contrast paints that are heavy with pigments and would instead dry more as a solid tone like regular paints. Though, after the paint dried, I felt that I should have used more medium or maybe chosen to use a gray instead. I went over the darkest areas of the armor with one more coat. I went over the darkest areas of the armor with one more coat to build up the values of the black armor. For their pauldrons, I started with an ash gray and dry brushed from the top of the pauldron down. Then I went over with a more focused dry brush of spaceship exterior. This helped give the white a much more weathered and gritty appearance. With the white done, I started to pick out all of the leather pouches, sheaths, chainswords, and chest iconography. While the brown dried, I went over all of the bolters with red contrast paint, as well as the Sword Brothers' pauldron trim and crosses. I also took the time to put black over the crosses of the other Black Templar. With the brown now dried, I took a bronze and picked out the tips and edges of the chest insignias to give them a weathered bronze appearance. I watered down that bronze to a contrast paint consistency and placed it over the body and hilts of the chainswords, as well as the front end of the flamer. I then took a light brown and began to cover the tabards of the Space Marines. To keep the weathered appearance, I left the lower parts black except for the raised edges. Once dry, I began to highlight the flat and raised areas with mummy robes, which is an off-white cream. After that, I picked out the highest edges with spaceship exterior. Once the robes were complete, I then tackled the gloves, pants, and boots of the initiates. I tried to use different shades of brown to have some variety in the clothing. Once the base coats were done, I went to highlighting them to give it a little extra pop. Like with their clothes, I tried to vary the skin tones on the initiates. I had painted red on their skin to hopefully bring some color into the finished result, but it didn't end up being noticeable. For their skin, I gave a couple thin coats, gave them a warm wash, then highlighted the raised areas of their skin before being satisfied. Circling back to the Space Marines, I painted up their purity seals with a dab of red contrast paint and their paper being mummy robes with a white highlight and followed by a warm wash. I wanted the seals to stand out from their tabards just a bit so they didn't blend together. To finish them off, I lightly painted their lenses white and followed up with red contrast paint to give the iconic red glow of their eyes. I wanted to give the Sword Brother a unique cape color, so instead of black, I opted for a purple look. I used Corvus Black and Nagaroth Night to make the base. I wet blended the colors together, making the recesses more black and the higher areas more purple, while still maintaining a tone that read almost black. Once dried, I dry brushed the bronze over the edges of the cape. Then, I thinned the dark purple contrast paint and blended everything together. Finally, I went over the edges once more with gold, making sure the dry brush was lighter and closer to the edges and still allowed a faint shimmer from the bronze underneath. Inside of the cape, I just stuck to a rich red and was satisfied with a few highlights. The candles got the same paints as the purity seals, but I used a flesh wash between the base coat and highlight. I then just added a bright orange and a red shade to imitate a glow. At this point I thought I was done, but realized I had forgotten to paint the hair of the initiates. I picked out some colors and went to work with the classic base coat wash highlight. While this wraps up, I'm excited to announce that I have a Patreon now. For $1, you get to see your name at the end of my videos, vote on potential projects, and see videos a day early. And for double the price, you can get all the same perks. I like this to be where updates for the channel happen regularly, and my other socials are more focused on announcements or side projects. Thank you all for stopping by my atelier today and watching this project. Enjoy the rest of your day.